Hi everyone, so I'm taking a look at Infamous Second Son today. This is the first of the next-gen releases for Infamous, and it's obviously a PlayStation 4 exclusive. You can certainly see the developers have gone all out with this title. Now, if you're not familiar, the Infamous series kind of places you, the protagonist, as a guy with special powers, and the general government doesn't really like that too much, and so in Infamous Second Son they've set up a special department of security of sorts, and who is going to deal with the bioterrorists, what they call conduits, people with special powers in this game. Now, effectively, this is very much a superhero game, but with a twist. You can choose your alignment of good and evil through the deeds you do. So if you happen to kill hostages and civilians or make negative choices, then you'll go to the evil side. And likewise, if you make good choices, if you save the civilians, save the people you encounter and try and help them, then you will gain good alignment. Simple as that. Now, where this plays in is really into your power choices and how you're able to kind of expand your arsenal. As you travel through the game, you'll acquire new powers from other people or other characters in the game, as it were. And you then also have crystal shards. Now, these shards are dotted around the map in various ways. I'm not going to tell you all of them for the simple reason that some should be sort of found on your own. But effectively, they come from two key places: from finding flying drones, shooting them down and collecting the crystals, and from these control points. And there are control points dotted in each sector on the map. The map is completely open world, and you can travel through it exactly as you feel, completing and opening up various bits, as well as obviously having a story, which you can go to the various story rally points, start the next part of the story, and so on. Now, as you kind of move through the game and you open up your powers and you kind of start leveling them up, certain options will be locked to you depending on your alignment. So this creates quite a nice little bit of replay opportunity. Once I finish playing through the evil alignment, I'm going to play through the good alignment, because some of those good powers are awesome. All the powers kind of have a core set, as it were, can be used either alignment, but it's really how those powers open up. Some of those paths will be blocked to you if you have an evil alignment, and so on. Now, one thing that really has to be called out here is the quality of the graphics. I mean, whoa. We really haven't seen anything like this on even a PC before, and it's quite clear that Sucker Punch, the developers, have gone absolutely all out on their particle effects, and part of that comes down to the powers that we have in this game are very colourful kind of powers. You're going to need a lot of really beautiful particle effects, especially for the neon power set, which is just beautiful to play with. I mean, it really is. It's an absolute feast for the eyes. Now, as part of having obviously these very heavy particle effects, the frame rate is not consistent, has to be said, but it's not as hitchy as we've seen in some other games recently. It is running at 1080p, 30 frames a second. Fantastic, really 1080p has to be the minimum, and then developers can choose 30 or 60 frames a second and get the frame rate as stable as possible at those ratios. Now, what we're really seeing from the kind of frame rate on Second Son is not a disaster, actually. It's dropping by 1 or 2 frames a second very occasionally, and it's usually when you've got a lot of heavy particle effects going on, a lot of on-screen action, because you kind of get a lot of on-screen enemies at once. Then it's not like you're being attacked by 3 or 4 people. At times you can be attacked by 30 odd, with all of the particle effects going on, with you dashing around using your various travel powers. It can feel a little hitchy at times, but at no point did we see the frame rate completely crash out. So that is obviously a major bonus point there. The game is reasonably stable with its frame rate, and not to a point where it ever drops under 24 frames a second. So at no point do you ever kind of feel that the immersion is being broken by this hitching. And again, at no point did we actually see any screen tear. Fantastic. Now, when we actually come on to the kind of gameplay itself, this is a fast and furious game. Combat is a kind of duck in, dive back out again, and constantly trying to stay in and out of combat so that you can really not take too much damage. Because of the way the combat system works here, you will be attacked from all sides usually, and because of that, you are going to have to make heavy use of your travel powers to effectively zip in between all of the enemies, hitting them with melees, hitting them at range, overcharging your super ability, etc. And basically trying your best to kind of have a combination of being in cover, being far enough away from the enemy, and being up close and personal. Now, this can get a little bit tricky as the game goes on, especially as your opponent's computer-controlled characters, the NPCs, become obviously much more many, and their powers become much greater as well, because they don't just have guns, they also kind of have slimmed-down versions of your power sets. That can cause a few problems, especially when you get up close and personal. Now, one of the things to really mention here as well is the NPCs, who have a really nice variety of kind of different combat mechanics, from up close and personal to long-range guns to snipers to attack helicopters. Oh my god, they're really quite tricky. But also the boss battles as well. When you want to complete each district, as it were, and completing a district basically means going through and not only knocking out things like communication towers and the command centre, but also completing smaller little challenges, like side missions effectively. Complete all the side missions in an area, and you can then call out the boss of that area to defeat him. Defeat the boss, and ultimately what that allows you to do is then fast travel through those locations later. Now, this becomes quite important towards the sort of latter half of the game, really, because otherwise you're kind of stuck on the wrong side of the river. And this is a mistake I made. And then effectively you're going to have to do quite a lot of walking, well, travelling with your travel power to get back across the river to then go and, complete an area. So you can then get your fast travel for that area. So, before you actually go across the river, do unlock at least one of those districts first completely so you can use your fast travel later. It will come in handy. Now, overall, this game is an absolute stunner, and it really does show how you should be doing next gen right now. Finally, we have a game that actually feels like it's respectful of the tag next gen, not just from the previous gen. We've added some more NPCs, tarted up the graphics a little bit, and hey, maybe even done something with frame rate. Actually, this is a game which feels like it was built specifically for PlayStation 4 in its next gen. Something you can't quite necessarily say with Killzone, in my opinion. But this one, it definitely feels like it's got it all going on, and it's a beautifully well-rounded package. There's quite a lot of replay value here as well, so for my mind, it actually is worth the price they're asking for. They reckon there's a sort of 10 to 12 hours of single-player gameplay here. That's obviously doing one alignment, I believe. So if you go down obviously the good side or the evil side, and ultimately then you can do a replay through and check out the other side. Perhaps the replay there is only going to be an additional 8 hours once you obviously know the game, you know how all the bosses are going to work, and so on. And those boss battles are interesting, but not going to blow your mind necessarily. It's the usual kind of affair with these kind of boss battles. Watch for the patterns, find out where the weakness is, take the boss out. It's as simple as that. Rinse, repeat. But overall, the way the game is being put together, the animation system, the beautiful, beautiful particle effects, it really does make for a fantastic game, and one that you're not going to regret if you check this one out. There's plenty of gameplay here. There's a really good fun time. There is no multiplayer. That has to be said. So, all the focus here has really gone into the single-player aspects, and beautifully done at that. One area which does occasionally have issues is the kind of texturing and animation used for some of the characters. At times, it looks absolutely A1. I mean, you're talking photoreal, blink and you think you're watching a TV program. But at other times, sadly, it steps into uncanny valley. And this is especially true on the protagonist character. His face is really kind of smooth, overly smooth almost. And he's wearing a beanie hat. And unfortunately, at times, it kind of almost looks like, well, bit of smooth as a baby's bum kind of thing. It just looks uncanny, and it's really stepping into the uncanny valley. But at other times, when you aren't sort of catching the side of the face, the clothing animation and texturing is just phenomenal. I don't think you're going to see anything better in a game. And just thinking, one of the things I was thinking when I was playing this game, and obviously this comes from it being a Sony first-party title, but it's got a certain element of Uncharted going on, so Drake's fortune and so on. The Uncharted series obviously has a very good sense of humour to it, and a lot of narrated dialogue that kind of helps bring the world to life, and Sucker Punch have kind of brought that in here as well. The story is really cool, and so are the characters actually. You kind of get this really fun banter going on, and also the character, the protagonist that you play, he's also kind of throwing out little one-liners a little bit like Spider-Man, and it all kind of works really nicely. It helps the world not only feel lived in, but gives you an actual connection and a reason to give a damn about these characters. Unfortunately, a lot of games these days kind of eschew backstory and anything that helps to push the characters along and your reason for living and existing in this world, and kind of just ignore all that, or it becomes quite superficial. Here, it actually feels like it matters, at least a little bit anyway.